In today's video, we're diving into Framer, possibly one of the best development tools I've ever used, as it is a perfect complement to something like Figma, because it feels like a canvas-based design tool. It's very easy to learn, and today I'm going to show you how to build a website from scratch in just about 30 minutes using Framer. Let's get started. To grab Framer, you can head over to framer.com. I'll have a link at the top of the description for you, and you can get started for free. You can use this in the browser, or they do have a desktop app. However, today I'm going to be using this in the browser, so I'm going to go ahead and open up Framer. So once you've created an account or logged into Framer, you can go up to New Project. That'll generate a new project from scratch for us here. I'm going to go up here to the center, just click on Untitled and give it a name. By default, we have one screen, and this is a desktop view for that screen. With that selected, you'll see we tab over here to Pages, and we have one page, which is currently the home page. If you click these three little dots right here, you can go to the page settings for more advanced stuff. Not going to really fool around much in here for this video, but you can add custom code in the head tag, the body tag, and do pretty much anything you need to from here. The first thing I'm going to do is change the size of this frame. I designed with a 1568 width and a 1024 point height. That's just the design that I like to do with my 8-point grid. For now, those are fixed values, but we will be changing this later on in the video. But for now, let's head over to Figma and take a look at the website we'll be building out from scratch in today's video. So this is our design in Figma, my design tool of choice. And it's a pretty simple design for a landing page promoting a new web browser. Here we have the Heroes section. We have a little bit about the brands and the people who use this browser, some of the customer reviews, and then down at the bottom, we have a call to action with a little footer. While we're here in Figma, I do want to mention there is a Framer plugin, because I know some of you will probably mention that in the comments, and you can use this to import your design directly into Framer. So if I just click on the finished desktop version here, I load up the Framer to HTML, click on that, you'll see down here at the bottom, it's copying all of my layers. And once that gets all the layers copied, we can head over to Framer and then just Command V to paste that entire design in for me. So we don't have to start from scratch. However, it's really easy to start from scratch, and that's what we're going to do in today's video, so you can see more of Framer and its tools. That way we have a better knowledge of Framer by the end of the video. But this is an option if you're looking for a quick solution to just convert your Figma designs to a Framer. This makes Framer so worth it just off the start. But I'm gonna go ahead and delete that. And yes, we'll delete that and we'll get started here. I'll just hit F on the keyboard for a new frame up here in the top. You can see frame, and we'll just click and drag a new frame in. And for now, we'll set the width to 100%. And the height will also be 100% for now as well. You'll see it's not perfectly lined up here. That's fine. We'll grab the desktop and we'll go over here and add a layout to this. So similar to Figma, they have stacks, which are very similar to auto layouts. So we're using a vertical stack here and it's aligning this vertically centered. For now, I'm going to go down here to the fill and I'm just going to remove that. And we'll tab over to the layers panel here on the left. And you'll see we have the desktop view here. And then we have our first frame. I'll double click on that and just name this Hero section. Also, while we're over here, we do have the assets panel. And this is where we have components. So we do have components just like in Figma. We'll dive into that more here in a minute. We can also set up some custom styles from here and some code as well. For now, we'll go back over to the layers panel. Now, right now we have the hero section selected, and you'll notice over here in the properties panel, which is contextual. So with that selected, you'll see all these options we have available to adjust for that element. And if I were to grab the desktop, since it is contextual, it will give me exactly what I need for this element. So depending on what I have selected, this menu will change slightly over here on the right. To get started off here in the hero section, let's add a bit of text. I'm going to hit T on the keyboard for the type tool and just drag out a text box and type in some random text. And then I'll paste in my actual text from my design here. And for now, we'll change the width to fit content and the height to fit content as well. You'll see the bounding box kind of wraps around that text really nicely. And we'll go down here and set the font. I'm actually using a custom font in our design. And it's really simple to use those here in Framer. You just go to custom and we can just upload the type file. So I'm using Pengram and Pengram's Monument Extended. So I'm just going to grab the ones I need. We're going to grab black, bold, light, regular, and thin. That way we have a good selection, and just open that up. With that imported, I'll select the extended black, which is the one we're going to be using. And we'll style this to 48 pixels in size, and then we'll leave the line height at 1.2. And then let's center this text just like that. And then we can just drag this here to the center of our section. Below that, we're going to have a paragraph. So T once more on the keyboard, we'll drag out a text area. And I'm just going to put in a bit of text. And we'll go ahead and style this before we throw that entire paragraph in. And for the paragraph font, we're just going to use a simple Enter font, which is already here in Framer. And we'll set this to, I believe, 19. And the line height will bump up on this, since it is a paragraph, to 1.6, just to give it a little bit more. We'll center this as well. And then I'm going to copy and paste my text in from Figma. And then for the width and height, we'll set it to fit content for now as well. Next, we need our call to action button, and for this we'll use a frame. So I'll hit F on the keyboard and just drag out a frame, and then T on the keyboard and click inside that frame to add a text element inside of it, and I'll just call this button for now. With that frame selected, we'll add a layout to this and make sure it is stacked. We'll do a vertical and make sure it's centered, and then we'll set some padding. And here we'll add 16 to the top and bottom and 32 on the left and the right. And you'll notice that it really doesn't take effect. That's because this button is currently set to fixed. And if we change that to fit, you'll see it fits around that text and applies that padding all around like we wanted. So if I were to go in here and add some text now, you'll see that this is future-proof and it's nice and it's responsive with the text there. So that's great. Let's go ahead and style this up. We'll swap the text over to white. We're going to drop the size on this down to 16, so it's a little bit smaller than our paragraph text. And we'll add a corner radius to this button of 16. And for the fill, we'll select that and tab over here to the gradient. And for the first color, we'll paste in this purple. And then I'll grab the second swatch here on the right. And then I'll copy and paste in my blue color. And then let's rotate this and slightly adjust it to what I want. That looks pretty good. And then let's add a border to this. So we'll just click this swatch and we'll add a white border of 25% opacity. Just to add kind of a glass effect to that just a little bit. Now that we have those three elements, let's actually grab the desktop itself and set it to our background color. So we'll click on that. And here we'll actually add our first style. So I'll paste in the color code for the background, and then I'll just hit the plus here to create a new style, and I'll call this background black. And you'll notice we have a style down here that we can select. And also if we go over to the assets on the left, we now have a color section with the background black style that we have applied. And with that, let's select both of our text elements and then go down to the color and update those to white so we can see them. And our paragraph needs to contrast the heading a little bit, so we'll go ahead and apply its text color as well. So with that text selected, we'll go to its color, and we'll paste in our color code here and add a new style. And we'll call this gray P for gray paragraph, and then hit create. And we have our two styles now. The next thing I want to do before I forget, because I often do, I want to try to stay as organized as possible. So I'm going to make sure everything is named appropriately. So I'm going to select the button, actually go here, and you'll see it says stack. We'll just call this button primary. And last but not least, we need to add an image here in the bottom. So we'll go up to insert here in the top left, and then we'll go to media and just select image. That'll throw this here in the pasteboard, which is fine. We'll just drag this in. And you'll see that that automatically goes into our heroes section, which is nice. And for this, we need to set a fill. So I'll just choose image and I'll select my image and hit open. I'm going to adjust the type to fit. That way the browser never gets cut off just because it would look a little funky. And then we'll go up to the sizing here. And one of the things I really like about using Framer is that Since I have the exact same size canvas as I did when I designed, I can easily just set things to the perfect size. So I'll set it to 1040 by 737. This way I can make sure the site looks exactly like my design and then worry about the responsive nature of it later. So I make sure that everything is pixel perfect. And I'm just gonna drag this down a bit here and get it out of our way. And you'll notice that that takes it out of our hero sections. I'll just drag it back in, and then we'll call this product image. So now that we have all of our elements here in this section, we need to start styling this section, because right now, if I were to hit play, which I can do so right here, or in the top right-hand corner, you can see that when I grab this handle to scale in the width of the browser, nothing is responsive, which is not great. So one thing that we can do is we can automatically start to add some breakpoints to this. So let's add a new breakpoint, and let's say add the tablet, and then let's add the phone. And I like to add them at this point so we can actually see what our changes are doing and cascading down to smaller sizes. So let's actually start to update this layout, and you'll see that these get cleaned up a little bit, and then we can make final touches here on the tablet or phone version. So let's grab the heading and then hold shift and grab the paragraph, and we're going to add that to a stack to make that nice and organized. And we'll go here to the gap, and this is the space between, so we'll set it to 24. Then with that new stack selected, I'm going to hold shift and grab the button now, right click, and then throw that in a new stack. And this way I can set the spacing a little bit differently. Let's set it to 32 so that there's a bigger space between the button and the paragraph than there is between both of the texts. And you'll notice that this bounding box isn't really hugging the content well. There's a gap down here at the bottom and at the top. That's because this is currently set to fixed. So with this new stack selected, let's call this content top. And with this other stack, we'll call this heading and paragraph. So I'm going to grab the content top, and we're going to set the width on this one to 100%. So it's going to scale the full width of the hero section. Then I'm going to grab the heading and paragraph stack, and I'm going to make sure the width is set to fill, but we want the height to fit the content still, so it expands to fit however large this gets when new lines of text are created. And then finally, I'm going to double check that both of these texts are set appropriately. So I'm going to set the width to fill, and then the height is at fit content still. So now you'll notice that over here on the smaller views, the text is wrapping and it's starting to look a lot nicer. We're not done just yet. Now we need to update the content top stack. And for this one, we need to set the height simply to fit content. The one thing I'm going to do here on the desktop version is go to min and max and select the max width. And we'll set this to like 768 pixels. So when you are viewing the website, it can't just keep growing in size and stretch out the one line like it was. This looks much better. So you'll see that over here, stuff is starting to overlap when it gets to a smaller screen size, and we can easily fix that. We'll just select the heroes section here, and we'll go over here and add a layout to that, and make sure this is a vertical stack. I'm going to set the gap to 96 pixels, and we want the height to be fit content. Same thing for the desktop version, we can select that, and now we can change the height to fit content now, since we don't need it to be a fixed value, since we actually have content making the page height value. So now you'll see our smaller size devices are starting to scale when the content wraps to show all of our content. But we're still not quite done yet. We need to add a little bit of padding here onto the hero section, so we'll grab that. We'll go to padding, and on the left and the right throughout this design, we're going to be using 16 pixels on both sides. And you'll see that now we have a little bit of padding here all around when it gets on a smaller screen size. And then for the top, we'll set it to 96, and on the bottom, 112. So already the section's looking a lot better. Now all we need to do is make our image responsive as well. So with our image selected, let's go ahead and lock that aspect ratio, and let's set the width to fill. So now it's going to fill the entire hero section width, and it's got that little 16-point padding on the side, looking nice. And then I want to add a maximum width to this. So we'll add that, And I'm going to set it to our original value of 1140 pixels, which is what we initially set it for the width. That way it can't get any larger than that. And you'll notice that our site is starting to get more and more responsive as we go. So if I hit play here, you can see as we scale down, things are starting to look pretty good. Finally, let's add a nice glow effect onto our image. We'll go down here and we'll click the shadow, and I'll just paste in a nice purple color, and we'll add this to the style, and we'll call this purple shadow. And then we can adjust how the shadow appears. We'll set it to 0, 0, 130 on the blur, and maybe a spread of 10 would look good. Now you can see we have that nice glow on the background, which makes it look a lot nicer. Finally, let's add some corner radius to this. So I'll go to the radius and set it to 24 pixels. And you'll see that that cascades down to the tablet version. So it's now set to 24 on the radius. However, if I do change this to 16, this one updates, but the desktop does not update. So the desktop sets the initial values, then I can overwrite them on the tablet. So here I've now set it to 16. You'll see it's overwritten the original value. That's why it's in blue. And if I go to mobile, we can even set one here. So we'll set the corner radius to 8. And since our hero section is pretty much almost completely responsive, let's go ahead and make those changes to finish this section off before we move on to the navigation. So what I want to do is click the hero section here, and I want to remove this bottom padding on mobile and tablet. So we'll go to the padding here and we'll just set it to 16 for both of those. And then everything else can stay the same except the heading. I'm going to actually grab that, and I'm going to go here to the styles, and I'm going to add a new style, and we'll call this heading 1. And then I'm going to edit this, and Framer automatically will make this responsive. So all I have to do is hit add breakpoints, and it calculates this to make it responsive by nature, which is so cool. I don't have to do anything. And now when we preview this hero section, as we scale in, you'll see our text gets smaller to adapt to each size of the view. So at this point, let's create our first component. So I'm going to grab this button here. I'm going to make sure in the layers panel that I'm actually selecting button primary. I'm going to right click and we'll create component on this. And I'm just going to call this button. Now we're going to have two variants. We're going to have the primary, and then we're going to create a new variant, which I'll call button nav. And then for the first variant, we'll call button primary. Now for the button nav, we can make adjustments here. So we'll drop the padding on the top and bottom down to 12. And that's all the adjustments we need for here. And now that I've created that, let's go ahead and use this in our navigation. So I'm going to go back over to home, and then we're going to work in the pasteboard just for a moment here. I'm going to grab a frame and drag one out. Then inside of this frame, we're going to have a bit of text. We'll start with our logo. I'm going to swap that over to our custom font. Then we can hold Option or Alt and click and drag out a duplicate of that. And this, we will make a link. So I will change its text back to enter. And I'm going to lower it down to 13 points. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this until I have all of my nav links. And I'm going to select all those nav links and add them to a stack. We'll call this stack links. And for the height and width, we're going to fit it to the content. We'll up the gap to 32. And with that links stack selected, we're going to hold shift and grab the browser, and then we'll throw that into a stack. Same thing here, we're going to set both of these to fit, and I'll double the gap at 64 pixels. This stack we'll call left content, and on the right side of our navigation, we're going to have a button. So we'll go over to the assets panel, then I can drag out a button. And then here under the variant, we can swap it over to the button nav. And let's drag this up and into our design at the very top. We'll set the width to fill, the height to fit content. And here, instead of center distribution, we can set it to space in between. And now we have our content on the left and right. And we can simply adjust our padding values. 24 on the top and bottom, and 32 on the sides. Next, we'll set its fill, and here I'll add a new style. And this one I will call Black 800. And let's also rename the background to Black 900. So this is just a slightly lighter color, so it's named 800, so we'll select that. And then grab all of our text there holding shift, and we'll swap those over to white. And we can even add a variable for those as well. And in the design, we have some corner radius in the bottom right and left. So with that selected, we'll go down to radius and select the icon here. And in the bottom right, we'll set it to 24 and 24 on the bottom left. Finally, we can call that stack navbar. And I'll set it to fixed for the position. And then on the left, we'll set it to 16. And on the right, we'll set it to 16 as well. So we have that nice gap. And all we have to do now is select our hero section. And I'm going to take the top value here from 96 to 194, just to give us a bit more space there. We can take a look at this. And now our navigation stays up at the top as we scroll down. For this brand section here in our design, this will be pretty easy because we're going to use a custom built component that Framer provides for us. So we'll go up to Insert, and I'm just going to search for the ticker element, and I'll just drag and drop that at the bottom of our website. And I'm just going to paste in some images here that I have created already. These are just components, and it's just an image element. And then what we need to do is select the ticker and grab this and drag over a line to the first one, and then whichever one I want to be the second, and so on. So I'm just going to link all of these up real quick. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the gap in between each of these icons to 80 points so they're not so close together. I'm going to slow down the speed that it's going to move at 60%. And just for now, I'll set it to fill. That way we can go ahead and look at this. And you'll see we have our brands automatically scrolling down here in the bottom for us, real nice and easy. I'm going to lower the height value down to 100 pixels so it's not so tall. Then I'm going to hit T on the keyboard for the text tool and just paste in a bit of text there. Then I'm just going to drag the ticker out, and with both of those selected, I'm going to throw them into a stack. A few quick adjustments to this. We'll set the gap to 24. We'll remove the fill and give it a bit of padding. 80 on the top and bottom, and 16 on the left and the right to match the rest of the design. And so that padding takes effect, I'll just set the height to fit content, and then for the width, we'll set to fill. And finally, you might not be able to notice it here, but the shadow coming off of this image is kind of just getting cut off by this new section. So I'm going to grab the hero section itself, and then I'm going to go down to overflow and make sure that the overflow is set to visible, just so that drop shadow will continue on down into this section, making this look a lot smoother. For the review section, we can actually go to Insert, and under Sections, we can grab a hold of this one, and I'll just drag this out. This is Testimonials 2. Really nice starting point for what we have designed already. And for this section, I'm just going to take it and update it to what we have in our design. At this point, we can make a little bit of responsive adjustments to this testimonial section. So we'll go over to the mobile view, and we'll change the direction to vertical. And that's pretty much it. Finally, let's throw in our call to action setting down here at the bottom. So F on the keyboard, I'm going to drag out a frame. I'm going to create a copy of this text and just drag it in here. And let's go ahead and remove the fill color for this new section. And we need a button, so we'll throw in the default button, make sure it's set to primary. And then we'll grab that in a stack and throw it into a stack here. Set its height value and its width value. And adjust the gap in between them to 32. And then for this frame, we'll go back over to the layers and call this CTA section. We'll throw it in a layout that will allow us to fit the content on the height. and we'll give it a bit of padding. I'm gonna go with 112 on the top, 196 on the bottom, and 16 on the left and the right as usual. And then we can drag that into our design. Last but not least is the footer, and this is pretty much doing exactly everything we've already did, creating a link and then copy and pasting it and throwing it in a stack. So I'll just speed this up for you. All right, so a quick look here at the footer. I just have a stack on the left with some links, and then on the right I have some images I imported of SVG icons. They're also in a stack on the right. Let's make a little bit of mobile adjustments now to finish off the design before we go into motion effects. So it's pretty easy to do here in Framer. All we have to do is select the item that we want to hide, for example, and just hit delete. And that will automatically set that to hidden. So it actually doesn't delete it. If you can see over here in the layers panel, it's just actually hidden. So we can leave the download there. And then here, let's hit delete on that. And I just want the logo for this one. Same thing here with the footer. Just hide some of those links and center that text. And we'll do the same thing on mobile. And there we go. Final thing to really bring this site together, let's add a little bit of effects, a little bit of motion. So when we load this in, I want this to slide in on the load of the page. So I'll go to effects, and then I'm going to select appear. And then on appear, what I want to do is go to the effect. And then down here at offset, I'm going to set it to 80, which is going to push it down a little bit. And I'm also going to leave this completely visible. I don't want it to be at 0% opacity by default. And then we'll slow down the easing by setting it to ease out. Finally, I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to set a delay on that transition. So here in the ease settings, I want it to come in a bit after the load of the page. So I'm going to put 0.3 seconds. And I want it to take a little bit longer. It's moving a little too fast. So we'll set the time to 0.9. So if I reload our page, slides in very nice. Now, as we scroll past this, I want to add a little bit of motion as well. So with this element selected again, go over here and select the plus to add a new effect. And this time we're going to have a scroll transformation. And on scroll, we're going to go from its default state. So I'll set this back to 1 on the scale and 1 on the opacity. Everything else is set to 0. We want to move it to a 1.3 scale. So it's going to get slightly larger as we scroll past the section. And we'll take a look at how that looks. There it slides in, and it gets larger as we scroll past it. Then let's have these cards kind of slide in a little bit. So we'll go back here, and I'm just going to select the first card here in the top right corner, and I'm going to hold shift and make sure I have all of these cards selected because I want each one to have its own effect. So we'll go to effects and hit plus. I'm going to add and appear, and then I'm going to go layer in view. So when it shows up in the view, I'm going to set this to the start. I don't want this to replay. I'm going to select the enter effect here, and we'll set the scale to 0.8. And again, I'm going to raise this opacity back to 1. I don't want it to fade in. And then for the transformation, we'll set that to ease and ease out. And let's add a slight offset. We'll add 80 to this as well. And then let's take a look at our site. And here is our finished site built completely with Framer. As you can see, we have all of our motion going on. It's a really nice dark theme website that was super, super easy to build in about 30 minutes, just taking my Figma design and making it with Framer. And with that, that's going to do it for today's video. Thanks to Framer for sponsoring today's video, and if you'd like to check out Framer, there's a link at the top of the description. As always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.